Hello, everybody. It's Veronica Valley, and I always get the wrong way to point.
Well, which way are you pointing? Okay, that way.
No, you're that
Hi.
way.
Okay, hi. And this is Chip Summers. Hi.
BBC is going to be calling us any day now.
Yeah.
So, hi, everybody. Thank you for showing up for this workshop. We are doing a little workshop today on how to let go of the past, because it is...
It's the thing that plagues us most.
It is. You're right.
Once you get sober and stop drinking, it's the past that is the stuff that gives you trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's everyday things, but it's the past that keeps you awake at night.
So for several reasons, a lot of it is because we weren't really our true selves when we were drinking, and that means we weren't really connected to who we really are, and we behaved in ways, and we did stuff, and we said stuff that we feel embarrassed, deeply ashamed of, and very guilty about. And those are really, really unpleasant feelings to carry around.
Yeah.
And we can't just click our fingers and be free of them.
Sure, and it's one of the reasons that often when we've have short moments of being sober, and then those feelings start to re-emerge, and we dislike it so much that we quickly go back to drinking because we don't like those feelings. They're very strong feelings, and they affect us all. And there's very few of us who come into sobriety who kind of have got nothing that we don't feel ashamed about. There's nothing that we don't feel guilty about. We all come in with a great baggage of kind of shame and guilt, and unfortunately it starts to sort of a bit like that's whatever it is in that movie, and it kind of comes out as soon as we stop drinking. And that's why I think a lot of people have lots of experiences of short time sobriety, because they get sober and they think, oh gosh, that's great, I'm not drinking, and then suddenly all these feelings come up and they don't like it. And hopefully we'll give you a little bit of help today about how to at least make some start into making inroads into helping those feelings.
Yes, and that's kind of what we want to talk about today, because eventually, if we don't put this backpack down of shame and guilt and embarrassment and all of that kind of stuff, eventually it just gets really uncomfortable and really heavy, and we feel uncomfortable in our own skin, and we can't stand the feelings, and our brain starts saying, how can I relieve this? How can I just get rid of this feeling instantly? And our brains go to alcohol.
Yep.
So that's why it's really important that we deal with it. So Chip has a very unique perspective on this, particularly as a parent. And I know we have a lot of people who are parents who have been drinking and are now getting sober, have gotten sober, and have some deep regret about what happened when they were parenting.
Yeah.
Chip, do you want to say a bit?
Yeah. Well, yeah, my daughter was 8.5 when I got sober. Her mother didn't get sober straight away either, which made it even more complicated. But without doubt, I very, very quickly, even though I had denied it throughout all my drinking, and I thought, no, I'm being the best parent I possibly can be, and was really quite outraged when people would suggest that perhaps I wasn't being a good parent. I loved my daughter more than anything else. I was vehement about that. And yet actually the reality was I loved alcohol more than my daughter. So there were a lot of things that, when I gave up drinking, really came to the surface. And the first one was without doubt, looking at my daughter, who was 8.5, and seeing really clearly that she was emotionally damaged. She wasn't physically damaged, but she was certainly emotionally damaged. She hadn't had the peace of mind to be doing scholastic work properly, and I was absolutely consumed with guilt. And I kind of wish I hadn't done it and hadn't done all those things, and I kept on saying to her, look, I'm so sorry, but actually even at 8.5, she kind of knew enough to know, you've said that before, so even at, and I hear that now with clients who say, how old are your children? They say, oh, well, they're only 12, they don't really know what's going on. Trust me, my daughter at 8.5 knew absolutely everything that was going on. She knew it all, and she went to school, not in the appropriate clothes, not washed properly, and she had seen us turn up at the school gates drunk. She had carried that shame of having these parents who were acting like, and I felt incredibly guilty about it. But like her, what I had done was kind of find some moments when it had been okay. One or two little moments throughout the whole of the 8.5 years when it had been okay. My response when I got sober was to completely go over the top, try and sort of make amends for it, give her everything she wanted, and actually probably in the process probably did a bit more damage, because I didn't put boundaries in place, just let her do what she wanted to do, because I've got to be good and I must stop being such a bad parent, and a good parent lets children do what they want. I was terribly confused about how to deal with it, and it took me a long time to let go of the guilt. And actually it wasn't that long ago that my daughter said to me, "Dad, you've got to let go of this," and this is many decades later. She said, "You've just got to let go of this. It's I'm my own person now." But certainly to begin with, I found it very difficult.
So can I ask you, one of the lessons that you learn, right, is that when you got sober, is to not actually overcompensate, and because what you're doing is taking your guilt and giving it to your child to try and sort of I guess forgive you, but what you're doing is you're kind of putting your guilt on them, whereas actually all children ever wanted was you, right? All she wanted was you and some balance and some boundaries. So exactly. Can you say a little bit about...
Well, that would have been much better if I had, used the fact that I was sober and the new information that I had about kind of, as you said, boundaries and being predictable and being sort of, so that she knew what to expect. No, I went out and I bought huge presents for her, and I really just completely went over the top, let her do what she wanted to do, didn't want her to feel upset at any point at all. So the moment she got upset, I would immediately just not deal with it, because I was thinking, well, I've made her upset so much in all that time, I can't keep on making her upset. And yet sometimes you have to make somebody upset to put a boundary in place or something. They get upset. They don't like it. I don't like it. But I mean, they don't like it when at 9 you ask them to go to bed at a certain time. So because I was thinking, oh my God, she's still upset. I'm sober and she's still getting upset. Right, okay, let her do what she wants. And no boundaries, overcompensating. She could see very quickly, I think, exactly what was going on, and that wasn't good either, because I think she learned very quickly how to manipulate that situation, because I wasn't strong enough to kind of just go, okay, things are going to change now. This is the way it was, but we're going to have to change a few things now, and you may not like them to begin with, but they are there for your good. Maybe some of that didn't know enough about overcompensate, try to give her everything that she wanted, and in the process just continue the lifestyle of no boundaries that she'd had all the way through my drinking. It actually didn't change much.
So this is one of the things we want to help you guys with, is if this is you and you do have a lot of guilt and shame about what happened with you when you were drinking with your kids. So first of all, they know a lot more than you realize.
Yep.
The second thing is, when you get sober, it's to really resist overcompensating. Try and create balance and absolutely have boundaries, because we can do more damage, but we can continue that by just not having boundaries. Because kids are like, great, if you're going to buy me stuff.
Yeah, no, completely.
Right?
Yeah. And she learned very quickly. I mean, she'd had both parents drinking for 8.5. She knew how to be manipulative. I mean, that's. Yeah. I'm not saying that in a negative way. It's just how people are. So she learned very quickly when I got into sobriety, that she just looked upset, she'd get her own way, and that was incredibly unhealthy for her, because I would respond. I think, oh my God, she's upset. Right, okay, that we can't have that for a second. Right, what did she want? She wanted an ice cream. Right, give her an ice cream. And we both, she played her part in kind of, becoming very manipulative, doing what a young person would do.
I guess your parenting taught her that.
Completely, yeah.
Yeah.
No, without any doubt at all. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, I think also I was lost as a parent, and I would have loved to have had someone I could talk to, or somebody who could help me say, look, this is what's going to happen. This is the sort of situations you're going to find yourself in. Here are some ways in which you can deal with it. But I didn't have that. There was nobody around. So to me, having a sort of a group like this where people can access support like this, get taught a few things. I needed to be taught. I knew nothing about how to deal with children, how to deal with guilt, how to deal with shame. I didn't know how to do that. So having somewhere where I could tap in and go, okay, how do you deal with this? And somebody giving me some suggestions. I may not have agreed with all of them, but my God, just having somebody who could kind of guide me through it, who would tell me, look, you're not the only person who's been along this road. Here are some lessons we've learned along the way. Why don't you try these? That would have been just great for me, because I was just felt like I was floundering about without anybody giving me any help.
So one of the things that I always coach parents with is that going forward, we can change everything going forward. We can't change the past, but we can change how we respond to it. So going forward, you can be an example to your children of someone who has made mistakes and messes, and someone who has asked for help, and somebody who's demonstrated trying to make those things right and to do better and to change. And actually demonstrating those to your children can be incredibly powerful for them to witness somebody being like, because when we're drinking, we're very predictable. Our kids are, and mum's going to be like that and whatever. And then to see you change so dramatically, I think a lot of healing and a lot of hope and a lot of transformation can happen in families when children can witness that and see you becoming this better version of yourself.
I think that's absolutely right. But the only thing I would say is that I just think it takes time. Usually when you've got a family, let's say a mum and a dad, well, obviously a mum and a dad or whatever, and children, and there's been drinking, a lot of active drinking, the chances are that the boundaries within the family have been poor. So reasserting boundaries, putting in healthy boundaries, is going to be met with resistance. And that can be really hard work. And, having somewhere that's going to hold your hand through that process, who's going to say, look, why don't you try putting this boundary in place this week, see how you get on, come back to us and let us know if it doesn't work out. But I needed to be taught how to put boundaries in place, how to maintain them, what to do when I was met with resistance. Because trust me, my daughter did not go, hallelujah, you're sober. Right, everything's going to be great now. I'm not going to be able to do what I want every moment of the day. That's not what she said. She was pleased, I think, that I was sober. But again, also, children, just like other adults, they don't trust it to begin with. They're on, they don't think, oh, this is great, this is the end of all my problems. They're nervous, they are anxious, they're suspicious, and they are not comfortable with the new person that they've suddenly got in their lives. So trying to kind of learn how to educate them about, this is going to be different. I'm going to be different now, because the chances are also that we've said that several times before. And so our words have become a little bit meaningless. So trying to shift from being meaningful and actually carrying through with boundaries, that was something else I had to learn. Because I would often start to put a boundary in place and then weaken when I was met with resistance. And I think if I'd had somebody who had been able to help teach me how to maintain a boundary, it's going to be hard work, but it will pay off.
Yeah, so I was in a different, I didn't have kids when I was drinking, so I didn't have that kind of guilt and shame, but I still carried a lot of guilt and shame from the way I behaved, just from with my friends, and certainly with my family, certainly how I treated my mother. And it just sometimes would just make me feel, I think the hardest thing that happens when we're in this situation, that just wasn't me. I'm not I'm not a thief. I'm not a liar. I'm not someone who's nasty and thoughtless and unkind. But when I'm active in my addiction, I become this person, and it's horrible. And it's really horrible to reconcile that. And this is something that takes time. It is a process. We talk about process work a lot in Soberful and the 5 pillars. It's one of the 5 pillars, and this is process work. It's first of all, we have to accept that we cannot change the past, but we can change what happens going forward. For me, I had to go and I had to go and have conversations with people. I had to go and own my mistakes and say I was sorry. And I want to say something about that. I think, in the 12-step language, it's called making amends, or just saying you're sorry, apologizing, that kind of stuff. And that's great. But what's really, really important is that we honor the apology. It's fine saying it. And I think when people give these grand, hour-long apologies, I kind of think they're quite meaningless sometimes. What happens is how you behave afterwards. So, I'm not going to, speak this way to, my family, and I'm not going to be a flaky friend anymore and not show up and not communicate. Like, you've got to change your behavior.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Right? That's what saying sorry really means.
Yeah. Words were absolutely meaningless to my daughter, and it was action, and to my friends as well, and my family. It was actions that they responded to. They'd heard all the words 1,000 times, and I'm sure all of us have when we're drinking, told them we're going to stop drinking. It's actions that were really important. It was, with my daughter, it was about saying to her, look, I can't change the past, but from this moment onwards, I am going to be reliable. I will never let you down, and I will never say I'm going to do something and not do it. And so far, I've managed to keep to that. But it's actions. It's all very well. You can say you're going to be sober till you're blue in the face, but unless you've stopped drinking and are staying stopped drinking, people aren't going to pay any attention to you. And that's again something that people really get upset about. Is that, but I've made the decision. I've made this really, and you're not trust. You still don't trust me, And it's like, of course they don't. And it takes a long time for families and close ones and loved ones to really trust that you are going to be a different person.
Yeah, so that's really important to know. And letting go of the past is your loved ones, friends, family, colleagues, whoever are going to be on a different time frame to you. Yeah. So we inevitably, quite a lot of them have already heard apologies, that you're never going to drink again, you're never going to do that again, you're really, really sorry, and then they've seen you do exactly the same thing. And that's because you didn't have the right help in place, the right program, you weren't ready for whatever reason. Let's say now you're ready and this is serious, and you have a program, you have help in place, and you've got a few days, weeks, months under your belt, and you want to keep going forward. Your family have every right, everyone who cares about you, to remain suspicious and skeptical and to not believe you. And I remember, I was probably 3 or 4 years sober when I was with my mum in the car, and I had a cold, and I was sucking on throat lozenges, and I guess the smell of them, they're kind of that medical smell. She said to me, "Have you been drinking?" And I was like, "No." Like, what? And but and that was 3 or 4 years later. But because I had taught them over many years that that's what they can expect from me, it takes them a while. And we have to give people the grace to let them have their process in their time frame. Yeah. And it's not the words, it's the actions. And I think I always
say it's about a year. And that's really frustrating, and you'll find people who, the moment you're 5 minutes late from an appointment will become really anxious, because that 5 minutes may just be 5 minutes to you, but to them, what's happening? Why are they late? And they're getting very anxious. They may become much more affectionate when they greet you at the door. It's not because they feel more affectionate towards you, it's because they're trying to smell whether you've had a drink or not. All sorts of funny little things like that can happen. And you gave an example then. I can remember my mother 29 years after an event, and I had been sober about 19 years at that point. We were kind of doing a similar kind of thing. And she said, "I hope this isn't another one of your criminal activities." And it's like, what? I'm I've been clean, sober nearly 2 decades. Oh God. Yeah, she was a corker. Yeah, but I think it is difficult because we do get very, we're on it. We're sober. We're getting there, and people aren't as enthusiastic as we would like them to be, and I think it's really important that you learn, and you can, certainly somewhere like here, you can learn how to let go of that stuff appropriately, how to wait and be patient, but how to put things into place that people actually pay attention to, and words don't really hack it. It's about actions.
So it does start with words. It starts declaring, sure. And then it follows up with action, and then it follows up with appropriate boundaries. Because the other mistake that people make is kind of like martyring themselves. Like, I'll do anything. And that's it's actually another form of abuse. That's really unhelpful. Like, I'll twist myself up in knots. I'll do, what we want to do is we also want to reclaim our dignity and our integrity and our self-esteem. And we do that by just doing the next right thing. And we just continue to do that and do the best we can. And it's not always going to be perfect. And you are going to make mistakes. And people are not always going to understand. But it's really about living in the solution rather than continuing to live in the problem. So you don't need to martyr yourself. You don't need to crawl around on bended knees for weeks and months begging for forgiveness. It is important that you do acknowledge what you did, and it is important that you start changing your behavior. But like Chip said, roughly a year for people to go, okay, this is serious. Like, this person is committed. They're showing up, and they're investing and doing this work in themselves, and they're doing whatever it is their program is. They are serious about changing and being sober. And then people will, sometimes it's earlier, sometimes it's longer, it depends. But then, a real shift occurs. But it's really also important that you begin to reclaim your integrity and your dignity and your self-esteem. Because I found, and this is really, always makes me chuckle, Chip was a degenerate criminal. But that's not who he really is. That's just not who he really is. But that's who he is in active addiction. And so the transformation that is possible when we get sober is really revolutionary. And that's not using that word lightly.
Sure. And why it's so important for you as people to learn about boundaries is you've got to be your own person in recovery, because you might find you've got a very supportive family around you. You might find you've got who won't let go of the past and who will beat you over the head with it, even though you're doing really well. You might be doing really, really well, and as a result, the dynamics within the family are changing, and some of your family may not like that. They may have had a power base based on your kind of completely sort of disempowering yourself by your drunken behavior. Sometimes you're not, and you can get people to go, oh, well, you're never going to change. You did this and this, and one thing about learning about boundaries is how to put boundaries in place to make sure that people don't continue to do that beyond the appropriate length of time. They need to be angry, they need to express how they feel about things, but it's not appropriate to keep on beating somebody over the head with it for years to come just so you can win brownie points in an argument. And one of the things you'll learn about boundaries on the courses is about how to maybe put a stop to that and say that's not appropriate any longer. I'm not going to tolerate that any longer.
Because that's how people will manipulate us.
Yes.
And we don't, that's something, people can't manipulate us without our permission.
Sure.
So that's something that we can change. So we would like, if you are ready to do this work and make this change, we would like to invite you to apply to the Foundations of Sobriety program, which starts in a couple of weeks right before Thanksgiving. It's going to go through the holidays, and that's deliberate because that can be a very challenging time for a lot of people. Thanksgiving is the end of November for anyone who's in the UK. So the Foundations of Sobriety program is a 3-month group coaching program. It's a very small group. When you enroll, you get a 90-minute personal intensive with either Chip or I. And we do a deep dive into your story and pull out what are the key areas you need to work on and what is the map going forward. And then you can take part in weekly group coaching calls, which either Chip or I will facilitate with the group. And we will be teaching you a lot of, we just call it, it's foundations. It's the foundation stuff. It's the stuff you have to know if you want to have successful, sustainable sobriety. This is, we just can't fly blind. It's not just about putting down the drink. If you've come across us before, you know that we've said this a billion times. It is about having boundaries. It's about being able to deal with family. It's about letting go of the past. It's about finding our limiting beliefs and changing them to more empowering beliefs. It's all of that kind of stuff. And that's the stuff that we will be teaching in the course. So if you are ready to do that and you've wanted to work with Chip and I, now is your opportunity. There is a link just underneath where you can apply. We do have some places already filled. There are a few places still open, but book a call and we can see if it's the right fit. It's a great program. We really love delivering it. We one of the things we always say is if you show up and do the work, at the end you will experience some kind of transformation.
Guaranteed.
But it all depends on you showing up. We don't have a magic sober wand. It's all about you showing up. So we'd love to see you in the program. If not, we'd love to see you in the Sober for Life program, and enrollment opens for that on January the 1st. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.